Okay, so question 7, um, the reflection from the preliminary task to the current product, um, for our finished product, obviously. I feel that from our original preliminary tasks, we've learned quite a lot into the editing process and the process of making a film. Although when it comes to the story and some themes of our original preliminary task, we feel that our finished final product is like a spiritual successor to that, having similar themes in the story of like stalking and killing, except we've had to change elements from it, and we've looked more about conventions in films as well, because we've changed it from a thriller to a horror, adding elements of horror such as masks, knives, well, not knives, but locations of seclusion, whereas the original was in like the college, which is quite a public place, um, as well as elements of more depth in the story, like elements of love with the relationship between the boy and the girl, and as well as just the feel of the film. We've got more creative with the shots, using more creative shots instead of including pans and which weren't much in the original, and using the idea of jump cuts in a creative way as well. Um, but yeah, on the editing side of things, I feel like we've learned a lot from the original preliminary task. As with the original preliminary tasks, all we really did was just cut up the film, narrow segments down, and just sandwich them together, and it was done. It was just having the clips in a row instead of having like any real detail to it. It was just the clips in a row. That was it. That was it. Done. We added some text over the top, scrolling down, and that was it. Finished. While with the original, we've looked quite far into. I feel like we've learned quite a lot about Final Cut and the software we use to create films, and how a lot of the intention and feel of a film can come from editing, such as in the original film, it was, yeah, we use no filters whatsoever, while our new film is quite filter heavy, using quite a lot of Procamp, um, sepia tones to give it that classic horror feel, um, as well as tinting the colours to give it a bit of an orangey thematic feel, um, as well as using desaturate and the colour balances and tweaking the colours, using some colorist techniques, um, just to tweak the film to make certain things pop out more, and while other things won't be as obvious. Um, we've also looked a lot more into sound editing, um, like the vocals, looking at different levels, as well as dubbing over to get rid of any distracting wind noises in the background, which we didn't with the original, having quite like the noise from all the rain and all the surrounding area flood into the film. We learned more about uh, how we can fabricate the noise, um, so we could dub over the voices so it still comes across clear and crisp, but without all the distractions of the real life setting, as well as making our own artificial wind, by recording the sound of a room instead of actually getting the real rough, distracting noise of the actual wind on set. And we also looked at levels to tweak them to make so the wind is still prominent, as you can see, like the leaves and grass move in the background because of the wind. You still have the sound of it, but it's all controlled so that it's leveled with the acting of the voices. The wind still being higher than the voices, but the voices being done in such a way that they're still quite clear, quite crisp, and you can hear everything above, and everything's leveled out quite nicely to be clear, which wasn't in the original, as well as having dialogue, which wasn't in the original. Um, as well, we've used a lot of different sound techniques from the original that we haven't put into the. I mean, from the original, we had quite a minimal sound thing. It was just using stock sounds on GarageBand and making little tweaks and stuff, just layering stuff together to make a fairly alright soundtrack for the preliminary task. Although we've went a lot more advanced with our soundtrack for the final product, using a completely different program that Scott used quite effectively, which was Cubase 7. Cubase 7, which allowed Scott to plug in a MIDI keyboard and have the video up in the program, so he could watch the video program and then actually play piano. So it's all his original composition that went into the film, which we didn't have in the original, as well as different effects being able to added, so we could have instruments and our own sounds and our own tempos, which we couldn't have using just stock sounds from Cubase, no, GarageBand, and also has the opportunity to add some voice acting in for when the main titles come up, which was Into the Shadows, and with that, it adds that extra bit of depth and elements of horror into the film, which was good, seeing as we didn't really have that from our preliminary task. And as well, the use of LiveType. We just used text equipment in the preliminary task. That was already in Final Cut, to just have the words on the screen, while we've learned how to use LiveType and we've used that effectively in the film, having a creative title sequence, having the text fabricated and come across right like it's being written slowly, as well as having the words shadows in a sort of shadowy effect, which was quite well done and, well, yeah, quite effective to use, and it's quite a lot more advanced from our preliminary task. And yeah, I think that is pretty much how our preliminary task has evolved. Thank you.